And this is sort of cool. Scientists at the Pentagon are developing a microchip that can detect viruses in the blood, including COVID-19. The chip would be inserted just under the skin and alert the user if the coronavirus is present in their system. The military has not said.
I knew it was coming.
Has been deployed.
In the push to get more Americans vaccinated, the Defense Department will require all active duty U.S. service members to get the shot. So first, just give us a sense of how many people we're talking about here. How large is the U.S. military? And then also, how many troops have yet to be vaccinated that would be impacted by this?
So it's all active duty, National Guard, and Reserve. So we're talking more than 2 million people, Savannah. But we should caveat that by saying that many of these men and women already have been vaccinated. So when you talk about active duty troops, more than 60% have gotten both shots already. And about 70, a little over 70% have gotten at least one. So again, the majority of these troops have gotten them. It's the National Guard and Reserve that the numbers are a little bit lower, and they vary state to state. But what's important to point out here is this is something we expected. President Biden several weeks ago said that he wanted the Defense Department to look into whether they could make this mandatory for all service members. Secretary Austin, a couple of days later, made it clear that he was not only open, but he intended to do just that after speaking to medical professionals and his joint staff. So it's not a surprise. What we did learn, though, this week is how exactly they're going to implement this. We now know that the Department of Defense will make it a mandatory vaccine for all service members, active duty, National Guard, and Reserve by mid-September. Now, what could actually speed up that timeline is if one of the vaccines, particularly the Pfizer, it moves beyond the emergency authorization and gets full authorization from the FDA. That will speed up the timeline for this to be a mandatory vaccine for all service members.
And now, Courtney, are they expecting blowback? And also, do we know if there's penalties if a service member refuses to get the vaccine?
Savannah, that was the exact question I asked at the briefing after this memo was released yesterday, is what are the implications if service member refuses? You know, you may recall when the anthrax vaccine was made mandatory, it was under an emergency authorization. This is decades ago, and there were service members who refused to take it. At the time, some of them were dishonorably discharged. They were kicked out of the military. We do not expect that to happen in this case, but we just don't have those answers yet. One of the big differences here is by the time this is mandatory, there's a very good chance it will have full authorization from the FDA. So it will be a more difficult argument for the service members to make that that they're being used as guinea pigs. That's one of the arguments that we've seen in the past when service members are required to get a vaccine that's not fully authorized by the FDA. That probably won't be the case here by the time this is actually made mandatory. You know, we got to point out there are 17 vaccines that service members are required to get. This isn't really new. There are many that they have to get just to go to boot camp alone. So the big question is how many people, if any, will really push back on this new mandatory vaccine, and we just don't know yet, Savannah.
And this is sort of cool.
It's sorta cool to turn into a zombie, sorta cool to take the mark of the beast, sorta cool to turn into a zombie, sorta cool, it's sorta cool.